morning and welcome to this info session for the introduction of the 2024 American Center for Mongolian Studies Field Research Fellowship Award winners. Each award winner this year is going to give a brief synopsis of their project and talk about what they hope to accomplish while here in Mongolia this summer. And so without further delay, here is our first fellowship winner, Aidan Marler, a graduate student in archaeology at the University of Colorado Boulder.
Sebenu. My name is Aidan Marler. And yeah, we will be doing some ice patch survey in the Southern Altai Mountains. Try not to just focus on that though. So I am from Colorado in the US. I grew up right about here in the Rocky Mountains, a little place called Pinewood Springs. Just grew up loving evolution and cultures, asked a lot of questions related to that. So as I got older, I decided to go to university in University of Colorado Boulder for anthropology. And there I studied under Dr. William Taylor to learn about archaeozoology. I loved paleoecology and archaeozoology. I found it very interesting. And yeah, he reached out to me to apply for this potentially. And so I was very happy to, because after graduating, I traveled a whole bunch. So I've been traveling for 7 months, mostly in Albania, to be honest, and Morocco. And it's just been about getting by, learning the languages, the local language, trying all the foods, talking to everybody. And so it really aligned with what it sounds like this project is going to be. I'm really just joining onto a project which has been going on for years that focuses on looking at glacial archaeology, ice patches that melt, and seeing what's there to study pastoral life in Western Mongolia, because the Altai Mountains appear to have had at least pastoral economies back to 5,000 years ago, which could be due to the fact that really high precipitation, a lot of water, biodiversity, and especially where we will be looking is a trade and travel corridor. So Silk Road type stuff. It's all, I think, really exciting. Yeah, so I will be working with Dr. William Taylor, Dr. Isaac Hart, Dr. Jamshranjav Bayar-Saikan, and other researchers. I think it's a pretty big team of people from both Mongolia and the US and hopefully other places. Yeah. It'll just be 2 weeks of actually doing the survey work in the Karav region, Kovd region, I mean. Just a pedestrian survey, looking for anything melting out. And we learn about these spots through, well, I am learning about them through other researchers, but they are learning about them through just talking to people and saying, hey, I'm an archaeologist. We're looking for stuff melting out of the ice. And people will sometimes be like, great, I know of stuff melting out of the ice, go take a look. So that is how we get tips, apparently, to go where we're going. Yeah, so I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity. And oh yeah, and we're gonna finish by putting stuff in local museums. This is just a picture from the National Museum of History, Mongolian History in Ulaanbaatar. But yeah, I'm really excited to learn more Mongolian language, talk to the people, experience daily life. Yeah, in both the city and in Western Mongolia. And finally, for bigger stuff, it'll be learning glacial archaeology is super important to me, at least, because we lose all that stuff. we're losing stuff every year. So as much as we can recover is really good. And everything we learn here can go to help us learn more about pastoral economies and just the history of Mongolia, especially life ways with animals. How do people coexist and interact together? Yeah. For myself, I hope to go on and study more of this, more archaeozoology and paleoecology in Mongolia, hopefully, assuming everything goes really well. Yeah, I think that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, well, the project that I am doing is a sustainable urban development initiative in the girls of Ulaanbaatar. I am Jean-Martin Caldiero. I am a professor of architecture at Florida Atlantic University. And this is the third time that I will be going to Mongolia to do research. And I am really glad for this opportunity that I get from the American Center of Mongolian Studies. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys. The first time that I went there was 13 years ago. I broke my leg in the plane, and it was quite difficult to do all the project that I was supposed to do, but I was just running around all these girls' district. And after I arrived to the state, 1 month later, I need to have a surgery in my knee. Well, I always have, every time that I feel a pain in my knee, I feel some kind of love and hate for Mongolia. But the love is bigger, and that's why I am very glad to return back. In 2017, I went, 18, I believe, I went again because I decided to study again a master in geospatial technologies. It's not my specialty, I am an architect. And my specialty is is researching about the improvement of slums, so informal settlements in the world. And I believe that the girls' districts in Ulaanbaatar are really amazing. And it's a really important element to be studied because they are growing so fast and they have a lot of social and urban problems. Well, this is a little bit what I will be showing to you today, what I will be doing here. The first time that I went there, I have like a plan to do something a little bit big, and it's taken me several years to do everything that I wanted to do it. First, I did some householders visits in several of these informal settlements, in 3 of them, and look at the urban conditions of them. I realized that there are not in the maps, most of them. And well, some years later, I come back to fly a drone and to build some maps. Well, I choose 3 areas where the city was growing very fast and the government didn't have information about it. I make a group of researchers from a drone people interested in drone and imagery in Mongolia. I was helped by a professor that studied with me in Japan where I did my PhD, Jagla Sarinen, and she helped me to contact all these people, and we were able to go to several of these neighborhoods and do maps of these 3 different places. The maps of Abushin and K17 were quite good. We have all the data that we needed. We didn't have so much mistakes, but that didn't happen in orbits. What was interesting is that we also did around 250 interviews in orbits, and we were able to give the coordinates to the people in charge of a small hospital over there with the data of the age of all the kids in order to receive immunizations, because those people didn't exist until that moment. And I think that that's one of the things that I was more proud of this project. I also published several articles, and well, I realized that in orbits we have some inconvenience, and doing the map we have a lot of mistakes. Well, the idea that we have is to go to these areas, do a survey about the housing condition of the people, so about 50 questions. I wanted to tell you to all of you that if you want to do surveys in Mongolia, it's it's a paradise to do it. If your surveys are in Mongolian and you give to them, 99% of the people is able to read and write. And I received from 250 interviews that we give to them to complete. We received 248. That is like more than 99% of return, what never happens to me in any other informal settlements where I went. Well, it was amazing. And you just need to make sure that everything is very well explained. I don't speak Mongolian well. Everything needs to be very well explained. And it's a paradise to do this stuff. People really want to cooperate if you explain why you are doing that. It was a very good experience. I met some people that were working in several universities and companies related with remote sensing, that is getting data from the space to look what happens in the Earth. And we were able to do some very interesting maps. Well, the maps were taken with a drone that was able to take in that moment 4K photos. And the idea is to develop this map and be able to identify how many girls there are. And this was supposed to be the thesis of my second master. But the data became old. I got a Fulbright to go abroad. And well, I was unable to complete the information because we lack of some information that unfortunately we were unable to get. Well, the idea now is to fly again the drones, compare the photos and maps that we did 6 years ago with a new reality, and understand how the city in this area is changing and how much of those pieces of land that used to be a ger now became houses, as you can look here. Something very interesting in Mongolia is that by law, everybody has a right to have a piece of land. If the land is in the countryside, the government will give this piece of land of a big dimension. If it is in the center, I mean, not in the center, but if it is in the city, obviously they will receive less land. Well, many of these Mongolians, they have pieces of land in the countryside. They sell the piece of land to get a smaller piece of land in the city, or they reclaim a piece of land and invade a piece of land in the city, and they arrive to the city without only some animals that they need to sell to live there, and a yurt, like a ger. Well, they install the ger, they put something around because they have dogs, and that's it. They start a new life in the city, but they don't have all the animals and all the land, a free land that they have when they are in the countryside. Well, this is a very strong urban problem. And our idea is that, well, these people move to the city, what the city needs to do to help them, and what are the conditions, and where they are located, and how many girls there are. Well, it's very difficult in the whole city to count the number of girls. Well, the idea is to use remote sensing and machine learning to allow us to make a prediction with a general satellite photo of the city of how many girls they are, and put these people in a map. And well, there are a lot of difficulties to do that. Is quite complicated. And well, I hope that this time, I know that I will not be able to do this for a big sector of the city, but because the grant became reduced, unfortunately, on time. But I hope I will be able to continue doing the project and help the city to understand what's going on, how the city is growing, and understand what are the needs of these people. And well, I think that is all. You can look here how the city changed here in 10 years. And I want to know, this is with satellite images, but with satellites it would be difficult to have some information that we want to get with the drones. And after we have some points of control thanks to the drone, then we can get a full image of the city and try to apply the same kind of rules that we have, and have help with the help of a computer program, MATLAB, and so on, try to understand where you have houses, where you have girls, according with the satellite image that we will get. And we'll use grasshoppers and GIS to do this. And well, I am really excited to be there from the first day of June. Hope to be able to meet some of you. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Purvdolam Inkpat, or you can just call me Anya. And my research is on analysis of timber decay in Mongolian historic monasteries with structural timber elements. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Arkhangai, Mongolia, which is one of the 21 provinces. So I'm not typically or technically from UP. I guess people here would say I'm a countryside girl. So it's my first time living in UP for a little bit. And I graduated high school in Dutch Harbor, Alaska, and went to university in University of Alaska Anchorage, and got my degree in civil engineering in 2021. After that, I worked a little bit as a structural design engineer between California and Alaska, did some internship while I was studying as well. And then I decided to pivot a little bit and go into historic constructions, and which led me to pursue my degree in advanced structural analysis of historic constructions in Portugal. So that's where I'm studying now and doing my thesis for that in Mongolia. Okay, so my dissertation research topic is timber decay in Mongolian historic monasteries. And so basically, why did I decide to do historic monasteries in Mongolia? There are quite a few reasons, some of them including poorly done interventions in the past. It's actually quite a big debate here between the people as well as the government, whether they're wanting to actually just destroy some past constructions or if they want to try and conserve them. And ones that they have been restored have been poorly done or not ethically standard with the international standards. And there's also a high demand and a low supply of researchers and professionals in this sector in Mongolia. There are a lot of monasteries as well as historic constructions in Mongolia, even though Mongolia has been a nomadic culture for centuries, up until I think 1600 is the first monastery that was built. So that was one of the reasons. And of course, giving back to my home country, as I'm a Mongolian, I would like to use my education and what I've learned to do research here and give back to my home country. And secondly, why did I decide to do timber material out of masonry or everything else? The main reason is that it is the main structural element in the constructions. So in this photo here, you can see this is one of the most recent restorations that happened with the US funded project. So you can see that this is a brick wall, but inside it actually has timber columns hidden. So the main structural elements that are carrying loads and everything is timber. So that's why I decided to go for timber. And also it's never been studied from a conservation engineering point of view. There are quite a few architects and people who are specialized in conservation here in Mongolia who've been doing this, but not from an engineering point of view, which in my opinion is one of the most important things, as it is a structure to be studied. So lastly, what does my research pertain? I'm deciding to do historic survey, first of all. So I guess giving you a little bit of background about how research conservation work is done. There's a saying in Mongolia that goes like, you have to measure 7 times before cutting it once. or, measure it 7 times and cut it once instead of the other way around, maybe. So kind of following that ideology, you have to do a lot of research before actually doing any restoration or conservation work on the structure, because it is valuable. It is not just any structure. You don't want to, you want to try and minimize intervention as much as possible. So, which is where the research comes in. In my case, I'm doing historic survey. So knowing the history of the constructions and the people who have lived in it, and maybe the past intervention that was done throughout the years, is very, very important knowledge. Inspection, which includes visual survey. So taking photos and actually identifying the damages and the geometry of the structure and the typology of the temples here, which are very distinct and different compared to maybe like European churches and monasteries, if you will. And finally, doing monitoring, which includes NDT and MDT, which means non-destructive and minor destructive tests. So I have brought some special equipment here to take some tests and gather that data, and as well as taking some timber samples from past throughout past interventions where they have maybe taken out a column here or a beam here or something like that, where they're just laying and rotting. I'm taking some samples to take back to Portugal and test it in the lab there. So my main goals of research are definitely doing a damage survey for the 6 case studies. So I have 6 monasteries that I'm working with, 3 in the countryside and 3 in UB, which I actually have done all the site visits here, as I think I arrived here April 11th, and now it's been about 6 weeks. So I'm actually leaving Mongolia this Saturday, completing my just site visits and everything that needed to be done. So from the damage survey and the analysis here, I'm hoping to, as a final result, do some recommendations for possible intervention and maintenance plan from a European point of view, and from what I've learned and studied from tests and taking samples and talking to my advisors, just so that it's, kind of like a base research pertaining to like the typology of the monasteries here, and as well as with the Mongolian colleagues that I'm working here. I think it would be very, very helpful for them to have a base research to kind of refer back onto that's kind of pertaining to international standards. And of course, lastly, I'm hoping for, well, I do have already opportunity for collaboration between Mongolian colleagues here, as well as other people in the field that I have met. And I'm also hoping for future collaborations and research opportunities. And finally, my research timeline is, this is just kind of a rough Gantt chart. Basically, I'm at visual inspection and gathering samples right now between mid-April to late May. And then when I go back to Portugal this weekend, I'll be doing some lab testing on the samples that I've taken, and finally processing and doing analysis of the results that I've gathered, and finally finish writing the report, and the final presentation will be in late July. And just some things that I'm looking forward. First of all, I'd just like to give an acknowledgement to everyone who has helped me in this research so far. The National Center for Cultural Heritage of Mongolia has been a huge support for me. My Mongolian sponsor works there, so they've given me an office and actually granted me access to all these monasteries and taking samples and everything like that. So I'm definitely indebted to them in this research. And of course, the people who have approved and let me do the research on the 6 case studies, the monasteries here in Ubi and in the countryside. And of course, my university and the faculty, University of Minyu, and ACMS for funding my project. Thank you guys. For future plans after the research, honestly, I don't have a concrete plan. I'm thinking about possible PhD because I really, really like what I have seen and done so far in Mongolia. And although it's been super hectic, I'm excited to go back and see the results that I get. And I think this is definitely something that was aligned to who I am and what I want to do with my career, and as well as just kind of my overall life plan, I guess. So I'd definitely be excited to do a PhD, but more towards this type of research pertaining to Mongolia, or work, or both. I don't know, but we'll see, I guess. And that is it. Thank you, guys.
My name is Connie. I didn't prepare like slides, so I'm just gonna quickly go through what I'm going to be researching this summer. But I recently just graduated from NYU with my master's. So my fields, I was at Gallatin, which is, if you've ever heard of Gallatin School at NYU, it's kind of like create your own concentration. So my fields deal with like ethnomusicology, and also music performance and composition, and also like multimedia storytelling. So for my project, I am looking at Mongolian longsong, or Orkindo. So I've been studying longsong since like 2017, and I actually started in Inner Mongolia. But the past few years, I've kind of concentrated more on longsong from Mongolia, especially with COVID and everything. So because I started with Inner Mongolian longsong, I had some, I guess, context for like the different types of longsong. And in Mongolia, a lot of the longsong that we hear and a lot of longsong that scholars actually look at is based on Halkh longsong, which is the ethnic majority in Mongolia. So I propose to kind of look at like the comparison between Halkh longsong and the longsong of kind of peripheral groups, like ethnic minorities living outside of Ulaanbaatar, kind of in so like I'm going to Dornod. I proposed to go to Sulkbatur, but actually sorry, I have a cockatiel. But I actually got some like an offer from the Eastern branch of the National University of Mongolia to do some extra work there, so I might be staying there for a bit longer. But I'll be going to Dornod, Choibasan, Sulkbatur, possibly, and also possibly Ulf's province, to look at peripheral longsong styles, and then also to Ulaanbaatar and Donglev to look at kind of the center of Halkh-based longsong. And so I'm going to look at, I guess, performance practices, document techniques and aesthetics, and also look at like the different types of pedagogy and kind of do this like comparison. I also want to take some multimedia samples and put it on an internet archive. And I kind of want to add to it. So yeah, just looking at how like the Halkh dominant sphere impacts these peripheral long song styles, and especially with like living singers today. And then so for the I guess the outcomes, I want to write an article with my collaborator, Dr. Charlotte Devlin, who does similar work. And then I'm hoping to present this at like ethnomusicology conferences, like Society for Ethnomusicology. And then also, like I said, to post any reportings on the internet, like an archive. So yeah.
I just have one image here that I think can help me sort of share what I'd like to talk about today. So my name is Atiat. I'm a graduate of Duke University, and I'm currently a candidate in as a PhD in anthropology at Boston University. And this project is a very long culmination of an interest that ultimately began in education in undergrad. And that interest first led me to China, where I did research on how people were kind of streamlined into different courses in high school based on their plans to either remain in the country or abroad, and what that looked like in terms of curriculum, in terms of parental choices, in terms of what people were thinking about in the future. And that led me to a further interest in what it looks like, what social mobility looks like in East Asia. And initially this project began in Shanghai, and I just came back from there. So I'm looking at this idea of what it means to be middle class in the 21st century, both in Shanghai and in Ulaanbaatar, and how that identification is related to ideas of success, to belonging, to mobility, and how it's also very linked historically, because this new category of class is something that is very recent, and it's very linked to a new generation that is born after economic and governmental reform in both of these locations. So my research methods are largely, in addition to participant observation, they are survey-based. Then based on the surveys, I will gather interviews and several focus groups. And I'm looking at the ways that parents, educators from all levels of education, kindergarten through university, and students who are older than 18 kind of understand what this idea of class means in relationship to their own identification with the educational system. And I'm also interested in their ideas about how foreign language shapes class belonging, as well as consumption, both more material consumption that we can think of, what do you spend money on, food, travel, and so on, but also this more immaterial consumption, for example, of media, of language, and so on. So I'm very happy to be working with Professor Be Otgontuks from the National University of Mongolia in the Department of Economics, because anthropology and economics are disciplines that are talking about the same thing, but one is talking about it using stories and the other is talking about it using numbers. And so it's really great to be able to look at this more statistical side of this question that I'm interested in. She also is involved with putting together the site, which is 1212.mn. It's an incredible statistical resource about kind of anything that you would think about demographics in Mongolia, and you want to know the numbers and details on, they're there. So that will be a huge resource in this research project. And she's engaged also with sociologists and anthropologists. So being able to look at this issue from the sides of economics, education, sociology, anthropology, I think will be extremely valuable. And ultimately, what I hope to get out of this is data that will be able to go into my dissertation, which I'm hoping to complete within the next academic year, and to think about what the stories that are coming out of Ulaanbaatar in relation to what middle class might mean for people living in the city are similar or different or parallel to what I've already looked at in Shanghai, and how this element of class may be reinterpreted, and its relation to history. And I think this image here, the reason that I have it up, is that through the research that I did in Shanghai, and as I'm getting started here in Ulaanbaatar, just the consideration of geography and the urban experience in how we are building class today is something that is already really coming through. So that's something that I'm hoping to think about as well as I spend my summer in the city. And I'm also very excited to use more resources through the ACMS library and other resources that are here in the city to construct more of this historical element of my dissertation. So there's a lot going on. I'm very excited, and I thank you all.